What's up? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and it's time for the weekly edition of Throwback Thursday, where I feature an interview with a person in radio or TV or comedy, all 150 interviews I have done since May 2015, and each week I am featuring one of them. And this week, from the nationally syndicated Kidd Kraddick morning show out of Dallas, the host, Kellie Rasberry, called in a year ago. She talked about her career, everything going on with the show, and more. I met her a couple of times at the Morning Show Boot Camp Radio Conference, and she is a very kind and sweet person, so it was a lot of fun to have her on Hoppe Hour. So without further ado, here is Kellie Rasberry of the nationally syndicated Kidd Kraddick Show, only on Hoppe Hour.
It is going great, Ryan. Thank you for inviting me to be on.
No problem at all. I don't know if you remember me, but I was at the Morning Show Boot Camp at the 25th anniversary about 3 years ago now, after Kidd's passing. I was the 6'8", 19-year-old at that time.
How can I forget you, Ryan? There's absolutely no way anyone can forget you. Yes, I do remember. That was a whirlwind time. Kidd had just passed away, I think about a week before that event. And he was scheduled to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. And so they sent me to accept the award in his place. So it was a bit of a whirlwind time, but of course I can't forget you.
That was a weird morning show boot camp, too, because it was so emotional, because you saw how Kidd touched everyone's life there, because he was such a fun guy to listen to on the radio, you know?
Oh, thank you. It was fun working with him, too. You know, he really was a genius. He was ahead of his time. He was a great teacher to learn from. I got to work with him for 19 years before he passed away. So it's been difficult. We continue doing the show. We still have his name on the show because we want to honor his memory. But, yeah, we're still doing it. And hopefully we're making him proud.
So how did you guys transition after his passing? How did you guys keep on making it work? Because you guys were doing very well, and a lot of people might have thought that you guys would have gone away. So what have you guys done to keep the flow going?
Yeah, a lot of people thought that we were going to be canceled after he passed away because, you know, it's the Kidd Kraddick Show. And I don't think that's ever happened in the history of radio before, where a host dies and the show continues. But we just had a lot of people around us, a lot of people high up in the ranks that believed in us and wanted to at least give us a shot. You know, my whole point was just give us a chance to fail. You know, don't take us off the air until you give us a chance to prove that we can or can't do this. And thankfully, we just all rallied together. We made a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of nervous energy on the show for quite some time until we all kind of settled down. But the audience was just so loving and so understanding. We all suffered such a huge loss that they were willing to forgive us when we weren't really our best. And gradually, we just got more and more comfortable with each other on the air. We had to assume different roles. Some people had to step up a little bit more and speak a little bit more than they were used to when Kidd was alive. And I think we've gotten to a really nice balance right now. The four core members of the show are still there: Big Al, me, JC, and Jenna. And JC sort of moved over into the commander's position. You know, Kidd ran the board, and so JC took that over. So that was a learning curve for him. It's not as easy as it looks to run the board and talk, and you direct the phone calls. You have to kind of train listeners how to respond to you. It's a real song and dance that he had to learn, and he did a great job.
Would you say that being on the show Dish Nation has helped too, because it makes it sort of fun to do the show as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different genre for us. You know, we've been doing Dish Nation, I think, for about 4 years now. We did it for about a year before Kidd passed away. And it was just, you know, a big learning curve for us. None of us were used to doing TV. It's kind of weird seeing yourself on TV. But we kind of learned, you know, being on TV is a different kind of comedy than being on the radio. On the radio, you have to be completely audio. But on TV, you can put more visual comedy into it. So it's a little bit more subtle than you would be on the radio. So it's been nice having a challenge a little later in your career. Not everybody gets to try something new like that in later in life. So that's been fun.
What was the approach like when you found out that they're going to do the show Dish Nation? Because you guys have to look really good to be on TV, because a lot of radio guys slouch in their chair and just wear sweatshirts when they go to work. But what's it like when you have to be on TV and look TV ready?
Well, that's the thing is when we're not shooting TV, we don't shoot it 5 days a week. We shoot either 2 or 3 days a week. So on our TV days, we come in dressed up or bring a change of clothes to change into. And but normal days, we're in sweats and baseball hats and no makeup. But we have a wonderful lady by the name of Janine Galante, who is a professional makeup artist, and she's there to do our makeup and touch our hair up for us every day. And we just have to bring, decent-looking clothes, not like we're going to a cocktail party or anything, but just something kind of decent that looks better. We have gotten fussed at a few times for getting a little too casual because, after all, we are radio people, so we had to step up our dress just a little bit. But on non-TV days, it's almost like a vacation. We go roll it up in our pajamas if we want to,
What's it like getting up every morning at 4 a.m.? Have you gotten used to it over the last 19 years? How bad is that?
I hate it. That's the worst part of Big Al says it the best. He says, I get paid to wake up. The rest I do for free because it's really hard waking up every morning. But we do it, and that's just the nature of the beast. I never get used to it. I'm baffled by people who say they get used to it after doing it for years in radio, but I never have. It's taken a toll on me, I've been doing this, I started when I was 19. I've been working with Kidd. I moved to Dallas to work with him at 27. So if you want to do the math, I'm getting up there.
How did you get the gig with Kidd Kraddick in the morning?
Well, way back in the day, there used to be a magazine called Radio and Records. And this guy I worked with at WJMX in Florence, South Carolina, read it religiously. He had dreams of one day, getting out of Florence and moving on to bigger markets. His dream was to work with Howard Stern, which he eventually did. His name's Chris Booker. I think you might be friends with him on Facebook. I think I saw that. But he used to go by the name of Booker Madison. And he saw this ad for a morning show co-host in Dallas, Texas, and thought I should apply for it. And I didn't know who Kidd Kraddick was, never heard of him at the time, but I sent in a little cassette tape. And about 2 weeks later, they flew me to Dallas to audition on the air with him. And he had auditioned several female, potential co-hosts. And I was just one of maybe 5 or 6 women who had auditioned on the air with him. But I apparently had the best chemistry. I never heard the other women audition because I was back in South Carolina when that was happening in the days before syndication. So apparently the audience liked me, Kidd liked me, and he asked me to pack up and move to Dallas, and I did. Best career decision I ever made.
How nervous were you going to the 5th biggest market?
Not at all. I didn't know any better. I didn't know to be nervous. I didn't know who Kidd was. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of going with the flow. And then after about 4 or 5 months, I think I went to my first radio convention with Kidd when it was in Atlanta, I remember, and everybody was coming up to Kidd and going on about Kidd and kind of like he was like this big rock star at this radio boot camp. And I was like, who are you? And suddenly it was kind of when I realized how big Kidd was and what I had gotten myself into. And I had a little mini nervous breakdown. Maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but I had to go into therapy for a little bit just because I was suddenly overwhelmed by, what was happening and, this big thing that happened to me. I guess ignorance was bliss. And then once I realized what a really big deal it was, then I got kind of nervous. But thankfully, Kidd and I, we just had such a great chemistry together. On air, I was never nervous with him. It was just all the stuff that came with that. That was a little bit overwhelming for me.
I can relate to you as well. I worked for Rover's Morning Glory in Cleveland, and now I'm on 102.5 The Bone occasionally. I work in promotions, and then I do this show on the side. But isn't it weird how it just seems like we're talking to people in the room or we're talking to ourselves, but people actually listen to us? Like, isn't that a weird factor that anybody can hear us at any time?
Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing, and it's so funny when people come to be on the radio with us, and they're so nervous, and I'm just like, I don't understand why you're so nervous, because it's like breathing to us. It's what we do, but you have to realize that being on the radio does take a certain amount of skill. You got to have enough creative things to say to keep people listening and be entertaining and hopefully informative and a little bit controversial because you don't want to be boring. It's a nice little tap dance you have to do, but I love it, and thankfully it comes very naturally to me. So I've like you said, it's just people kind of listening in to what we're talking about anyway.
That's what I like about your show is that you guys all seem like you're friends and it just comes off so natural. It's not like you just put 4 people in a room and you're like, okay, do a radio show. You guys just come off so natural. That's what is so charming about the show.
Well, thank you. Kidd really wanted to put together an eclectic mix. You know, he doesn't want 4 people from the same backgrounds or whoever, however many. You know, we've gone from 3 people on the show, 4 or 5. We've had different numbers over the years. But the main thing is he wanted everybody to come from a different perspective, a different point of view. You know, we have a black guy on the show, a Mexican-American on the show. We have this hot little blonde. You got me, an ultra-conservative. You got the liberal. You got, you know, you have to do a good mix to keep it entertaining. And we don't always get along. We fight like family, but I think the reason people are okay with that is because they know we all really love each other. It's easy to listen to people kind of fight a little bit when you know there's love there. But if you were listening to people who truly hate each other, going after each other every day, that's not fun to listen to. So, yeah, we don't always agree. We don't always get along. We're like a family, but we all love each other.
How often have the fights gotten bad where you maybe think about breaking up the show? Has it ever reached that point?
Well, not Kidd might have thought that. He was always in charge. Since he's passed away, we haven't had that conversation. I remember one time Kidd and I had a fight so bad that we didn't speak to each other off the air for 3 months. And then I finally had to go, even though I'm still convinced to this day he was wrong. I was the one to apologize because after a while it gets to be kind of ridiculous. It's like we've got to speak to each other. But I don't think it ever got to the point, and maybe I'm wrong, that he wanted to fire me or anything like that. But, I mean, we've had people come and go, but we've had this core group. Gosh, JC came about 10 years ago, Jenna about, I'd say, 7. So for 7 years we've had the same players, and that's really rare in radio. But nobody's ever considered busting up this core group as far as I know.
How odd is that? Because you hear about a lot of these radio guys that they talk on air and it comes off natural, but off air they hate each other or they don't talk at all. So how weird was it when you and Kidd would be meshing perfectly on air, but then off air you don't say a word to each other? I just can't imagine that. It was
difficult, but you know what the thing was is Kidd and I, when we were fighting in real life, it bled over to the air. You know, we couldn't avoid speaking to each other, but you could sense the tension, and we were mad. We would let that play out a little bit on the radio to a cerun degree. We kept it real. If anybody was fighting, anybody was, having problems going on, we brought that onto the air as much as we could. You don't want to beat people over the head with your fights and stuff. But Kidd and I fought on the air all the time. That period where we didn't speak off the air, that was the worst. But it was real, and that's what we were going through.
What I like about your show, too, is you guys have original content, because a lot of shows, I'm not going to rip into them, but they seem to do the same thing every single day. So what do you guys do to keep it fresh?
Well, we just kind of keep up with what's going on, on social media, on the news, on TV. We live our lives, really. We're in relationships. We break up. We have babies. We just go out and stay busy. And if you talk about what you're doing and in relation to what's going on in the world, that's what keeps it fresh,
Because I want to ask you this, too. I'm on the Mike Calta show every once in a while here in Tampa Bay, and my ex-girlfriend that I went out for like 7 weeks, I know that's not a long time, but one of the things that kind of broke it up was she wasn't cool with me having to talk about things on the radio. So what's the key to having a healthy balance with radio and then a private life? Because I know we're in such a weird position where we sort of have to talk about our lives,
Yeah, you do. A lot of radio personalities hide the fact that they're in a relationship because, for whatever reason, because some DJs think, oh, the girls will like me better, if they think I'm available. And there's some truth to that. But with our business, there have been men that I have had to break up with, or the relationship didn't work out because of my job. But that's part of who I am. So to find somebody who's secure enough in that position, that's really a hard thing. So that girl obviously wasn't right for you. If you found out that early, that's lucky for you because she wasn't going to be the right fit. She wasn't a good radio partner, you know what I mean, outside of the job. But the guy I'm dating right now, it's a new relationship. I don't really talk about his name too much. We kind of, like Big Al on the show, he always gives his girls a fake name. His girlfriends always have a fake name. So he can talk about them and kind of say things that maybe he wouldn't if people all knew who he was really talking about. It's kind of funny because when he makes up his names, the names have something to do with their job. Right now, his girlfriend's a doctor, so she's Dr. Girlfriend, but he's dated people in the past that had these funny nicknames, and that's what's worked for him. But it does take a special person to date us and to be with us because we do share so much of our personal lives. And unfortunately, that doesn't always work out for us in the romance department.
How weird is it that you're a huge public figure in radio? I'm like a Z-list. I get recognized a lot. But how weird is it that at the end of the day, we're public figures and people break down our lives just by what they hear, you know?
I'm very flattered and honored. People feel like they know us.
Yeah.
Especially, people used to always, we're in a big city and we do get recognized a good bit, especially now being on TV too. And people always you could see them pointing and talking and knowing it was you. But then once Kidd passed away, it was like this barrier came down because then we all shared such grief that people would start coming up to us and, wanting to hug our necks and tell us how much the show has meant to them. And I've been in Dallas now. It will be, 22 years this May. In all those 22 years, I've only had one bad experience where a drunk girl at a party came up to me and let me know that she didn't care for me very much. But in 22 years to have that only happen once, I mean, the majority of the time people are so loving and so excited to meet us and, put a face with the name. And it's always been a very positive experience. So I love it. As long as people are nice and are respectful, if I'm with my daughter, they're welcome to come up and say hi to me anytime. I love it. That's part of the job, it's part of the job.
Do you get any hate online via Twitter or Facebook? Because it seems that nobody's going to say it to our face if they hate us or not, but they are just free online to say whatever they want,
Yeah, it's really been interesting. When it first started happening, I took it very personally, and Kidd actually recommended a book to me called The Four Agreements, and one of the four agreements is you can't take things personally, because when someone who doesn't know you takes their time to go on social media to rip you apart, that has nothing to do with you. That has only to do with them. Because, there's people I listen to on the radio that I don't care for, and there's actors I see on TV that I'm like, oh, he's not my favorite. I've never taken the time to open up my computer and write them a scathing message, because that's just not in me to do that. I can just not like them and move on. But when you realize that it's nothing personal against you, and if you can really grasp that concept, it does help a great deal. Now, if anybody says something about my kid, I get all over it. And people are just mean. I think so many people feel powerless or angry or whatever in their personal lives. So when they get behind that computer screen, suddenly they have all the power in the world. They can say whatever they want and take down somebody. And, in a way, it makes them feel bigger. But I just feel like it just makes them feel darker and uglier on the inside. So I've gone from a place of being angry about it to feeling sad for them, because that's the only way they have to express their emotions.
How much different is radio now with social media like Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter? Is it ever hard to keep up?
It is a lot. I don't do everything. I do right. Well, Kidd made us do everything. Kidd always could see this is going to be the next big thing. This is going to be the next big thing. So he made me sign up for Twitter when it first started. So I've got the Twitter, I've got Facebook, and I've got Instagram. That's enough. I'm not doing Snapchat. I don't know what else they're coming out with, but that's enough for me. To have to maintain 3 accounts is a lot. And a lot of people are surprised when they find out I do maintain my own accounts, because not everybody does that. A lot of celebrities, a lot of radio personalities, they have interns or employees that do that. I don't want anybody speaking for me. If I say something that's coming from me on my social media, I don't want somebody ever speaking for me. So that's 3 accounts is plenty for me to handle.
I always find that odd when these big shows, you'll have the tweets and they just come off so robotic. It's like, if you have a Twitter, why not try to have a personality, and not just plug your show 24/7? Because I feel like that's 50% of radio accounts.
Yeah, that's the hard thing to do. You have to, and it gets, when I first started Twitter, I wasn't using it for the radio. I was using it because I was having a mommy makeover. And I decided I'm going to document, my surgery and what I'm feeling. And I wasn't even using it to promote the radio, but that's why people loved it. And so it is easy to get lazy and just use it to, promote what's coming up tomorrow. We're giving away $1,000 or whatever. But when you take time to say something about, politics, so that's a hot button. But if you take time to say anything about that or religion or just anything, that's what people will get excited about and talk about.
Do you guys ever talk about like Trump on your show, or do you just try to not even go into that type of water?
Not really. It's a no-win situation. It's a no-win situation. So it's and if people want to listen to a political debate or anything, there are plenty of other radio stations that offer that. That's just not us. You can't make everybody happy, which isn't the goal anyway. But that's really a hot button subject we choose to stay away from. What are some of the hot topics that you guys talk about that wouldn't turn away listeners? Oh gosh, I guess we've, I guess recently we've talked about medical marijuana. That was something, because people can't believe that I have never once smoked a joint. I've never tried marijuana in my whole life. I never have, and I'm very, very proud of that. And so when we talk about medical marijuana or just marijuana use becoming legalized, that gets a little bit debatable for us on the show because you have me and my very conservative viewpoint and then someone like Jenna who's a little bit more loosey-goosey about it. So that would be an example of something we can talk about, which doesn't really cross too many lines, I think, socially. I mean, we can keep it kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, non-volatile enough to have a good debate about that. What is your take on medical marijuana? Are you a person that just thinks it's okay if other people smoke it and you don't? Or do you sort of look down on people that smoke weed? Well, I mean, I have been there where I've never tried it, but I've been so sick before and so nauseous that I've wanted to die. So I'm thinking if it was either a choice of death or smoking a marijuana cigarette, I'd probably choose to smoke the marijuana cigarette or eat a gummy bear, whatever they do. So when it's for a true medical reason, I completely understand it. My problem is just with these young kids getting a hold of it. I think it really does affect their brain cells. And, I mean, I haven't done a lot of research on it, but I don't want it to become this real recreational thing where just everybody's doing it either. I think it has to be supervised. But, there's too many people sitting in jail on these little marijuana convictions. And that's a bit of a problem, too. That's why we don't talk about these things to that extent. We just kind of make fun of the fact that I've never smoked it and I'm a big nerd on the show. Yeah, I just feel like with your top 40 audience, there's a no-win situation because it's going to be 50% pro-weed, 50% not pro-weed. I just feel like it would turn away listeners. Yeah, well, you can still have an interesting debate about it and get people involved, and they feel like, I'm on Kelly's side, or I'm on Jenna's side, or whatever. And that's not, we're not, when you start talking politics, people get real angry about it, and it's just not worth that. What are some ways that you come up with prep during the day since you do a 4-hour show each and every day? Like I do this show once a day, but a lot of times it's interviews and it's me ranting on the news, but I've been having a hard time finding a way to get prep. So what do you do during the day? I just live my life. Yeah. I live my life and I try to keep up with what's happening. And, I have to know a little bit about a lot. I have to know a little bit about what's happening in the entertainment world. I have to know a little bit about politics, a little bit about world events. That way, when those subjects come up, I can contribute something to the conversation. But then again, Ryan, we're in a different position where I have a producer and an associate producer, and we have a room full of interns who it's their job to kind of, scour the internet and find things that they think are interesting. So the burden's not all on me. But, if I go out and have a really great date night with my boyfriend and something funny happens, I have to really just make note, this is something I need to bring to the show. If I'm out at the Target and I see something happen, then I'm like, that's not right. I have to remember to talk. You just have to be really aware of what's going on around you, because real life situations that people can relate to, like, that happened to me. This guy cut me off in traffic too. And, what happened after that, those kind of things, I think people get more involved in than just reading what's happening in the world and reading the latest celebrity gossip story,
So you guys are syndicated in a bunch of different cities. So what is the key to making sure that the prep fits each and every city, since there's a bunch of different cultures in each city?
We don't really we don't treat it like we're catering to different cities. We don't really think along those lines. It's just entertaining content, silliness sometimes. We don't really take into it. I mean, we don't talk about, we're based out of Dallas, so we don't spend a lot of time referencing Dallas because that is alienating to other cities. But other than that, the content, in our opinion, is, I guess, the same for everyone. If we find it interesting here, we're hoping people find it interesting in Myrtle Beach and in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. We hope everybody finds it interesting.
Now, when I have people in radio on, I ask them this, so I want to ask you this to get your take. Where is radio going to be in the next 5 to 10 years? How do you see this playing out?
Oh, Lord, honey, syndication is just dominating everything. I think eventually it's going to be really hard for new people coming into the market and into the industry because, you have to have such a passion for it that nobody can tell you no. You know what? Because that's the thing. That's the kid that's going to maybe be able to stick to it long enough to actually have a career. But I see so many people trying to get into the business now, and it's overrun with syndication. And it's really hard. You listen to most small town radio, which is where I got my start, was on a small town radio show, and it's Ryan Seacrest, it's the Kidd Kraddick morning show, it's the Burt show. It's all syndicated. So where do these kids get their shot? It's going to be really hard to get your foot in the door. But like I said, if it's your passion and it's what you eat and breathe and sleep and it's all you think about and you're willing to give up personal relationships for it, you're not going to stop that kid who wants to do radio.
Yeah, that's me. I thought I would maybe change after getting my girlfriend, but it's just odd how I took radio basically over her. Like, this is what I want to do. So I'm making sure I have.
You'll find the right partner, Ryan. You'll have to find. Kidd had that he ended up getting divorced after many, many, many years for reasons that had nothing to do with radio. But when you find the right partner for you in your personal life that gets it, that this is part of the show and this is part of your gig. There is that person out there. It just takes a little bit longer to find them.
Now, before I let you go, where do you want to see your show, within the next 5 years?
Well, we're still, we're very, very blessed. We just signed another 5-year deal, which is weird that you brought up that number, with our largest affiliate, which means we're going to be at least able to stay on the show for another 5 years. 5 years from now, I would love to still be doing radio. I don't know if it'd still be in the same capacity. It might not be doing a morning show, but I just can't imagine not being on the air. I've done this since I was 19 years old. What am I going to do if I don't have radio? But I still want to be doing it in some way, shape, or form. I just don't know that it's going to be from 6 to 10 a.m. You know what I mean?
Now, where can people check out your show?
Well, we've got I suddenly went blank. We have the Kidd Nation website, KIDDnation.com, and there's in the morning when we're on live, there's a link there where you can watch and listen at the same time. But if you also have the iHeartRadio app, you find an iHeart station that we're one of the morning shows. You can listen there. We have the Kidd Nation app, and those are the places you can find us if you want to listen to the radio show. The TV show is called Dish Nation. And a lot of people think because of the name that you have to have the Dish Network to get it, but it has nothing to do with the Dish Network. It's on regular cable TV and mostly on Fox affiliates. There's a few other like CWs and things like that, independent stations, but it's mostly on Fox stations. And if you go to dishnation.com, there's a button there where you can click, and it'll show you what time and what TV station we're on in your market.
Keep up the good work. I really like what you guys are doing. I'm into more talk radio, so I can't always relate to Top 40 radio. But what I like about your show is you guys are so relatable and so charming that it just comes off with a really positive vibe.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Yeah, we do. We really do a talk show, a talk radio show that just happens to have music playing, Back in the day before syndication, when things got so tight, we would just talk. We might play one or two songs an entire morning, but that's when things were a lot more loose. And now there's the way things are. You've got to play so many records an hour. You have to play so many commercials an hour. It's really been restrictive on how much freedom a personality can have to develop a topic, to really flesh something out. And it's really difficult, but, our audience has been really good. We hope we keep entertaining them for at least 5 more years, hopefully for longer than that. And thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And are you going to the morning show boot camp this year?
I don't know. I haven't when is that?
It's in August. It'll be in Atlanta.
Oh, well, see, that's the very first one I went to back in 1994 was in Atlanta. So it might be time for me to show back up.
Sounds good. If you're there, we should definitely get a drink. Keep up the good work, Kellie.
Absolutely. And you're buying, right, Ryan?
Sounds good. It's on me.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
And that was Kellie Rasberry from the nationally syndicated Kidd Kraddick in the Morning Show out of Dallas, which can also be seen on Dish Nation. As she said, every night in your market on a Fox channel or the CW, etc. Go to dishnation.com to see where you can see it. And she is one of the most sweetest, genuine person in this business. I met her at the Morning Show boot camp 3 years ago after Kidd's passing, and she was just such a great woman to talk to. She's so down to earth. So I am glad that they are having success because they deserve it. If you are a fan of the Kidd Kraddick Show and you just heard this interview and you want to hear more of Hoppe Hour, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. All you have to do is go to the Google Play or iPhone shop, search up Hoppe Radio, HOPPE Radio. You can hear all 109 interviews that I've done since July. And you can also go to my website, RyanHoppeRadio.com, tweet at me at RyanHoppeRadio. And guess what? If you want to send me an email, it's not hard. RyanHoppeRadio@gmail.com. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.